What's up?
Jorge, what's up, dude?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Fuck, dude. Not as good as you and not as good as Alex Stein, but I'm still fucking.
Dude, that beard's looking epic, man. It's looking
Thank
good.
you. Thank you. I'm doing the beach life. I had a big old handlebar one looking like some sort of like Hasidic Jew knockoff, second rate Hasidic Jew for a while, and then I'm at the beach for the last 2 weeks. So I cut it
Yeah,
all
dude,
off.
I gotta hide my girls around you, bro.
I got my Sean Penn going. I told my wife today that I looked like Eddie Vedder. She's like, a little bit, but I think she was lying.
How you doing, Matthew? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Good, man.
Can I show you a clip off subject a little bit?
Yep.
Okay. This was on Twitter a couple days ago. I saw this. I thought, I got to run this by Jorge, see what he thinks.
So how's it two different things? Somebody unvaccinated comes over on a plane. You say that's not okay. Somebody walks into Texas or Arizona unvaccinated. They're allowed to stay. Why?
But that's not how it works. Like we actually no.
I know that that's not what you guys want to happen, but that is what has happened.
But that's not. It's not like somebody walks over and that's not how.
Exactly what's happening.
Well,
Thousands of people are walking in a day. Some of them turn themselves over. Some of them are caught. Tens of thousands a week are not. That is what is happening. So,
ladies and gentlemen, we have Jorge Ventura on, outside of some guy whose job it is to protect the border, or some guy whose job it is to bring illegals over the border. I think they're called coyotes. There is no reporter, in my humble opinion, who knows more about the border than Jorge Ventura. Jorge, who's right? Peter Ducey from Fox saying people are walking over the border and they're not vaccinated and they're not being tested, or her saying, no, that's not what happens?
No, it's obviously my boy P. Ducey, man. We gotta let Novak play. We were actually making I made a joke post about it actually 2 days ago of like, hey, Novak can't play, but like all these people could come in. It's kind of ridiculous. The funny thing is, Jen Psaki could bullshit way better than her. Like Jen Psaki would have been out of there and like would have flipped it on Ducey and was like, "You're a liar." This new one, man, she can't get out of there, dude. That fake laugh, she's got to do better than that. Jen Psaki's running circles around her.
So people, from what I've seen, from the reporting I've seen, people by the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Oh yeah, obviously I'm being sarcastic, but yeah, no. Yeah, by the tens, hundreds of thousands. There was a report we did last year where, if you guys remember when those 15,000 Haitians all crashed the bridge at one time, it was in Del Rio. It was actually in September. They were actually releasing Haitians to the public, and we were actually doing an interview with Haitians saying, "Hey, have you been tested with COVID-19 before being released to the public?" And they would all say no. We actually put that video out and actually forced Secretary Mayorkas to have to admit that. So this is very true. They're also being flown on the same planes and buses that a lot of Americans are being put on. That video is not less than a week ago. We took that in Eagle Pass. This is around 9 a.m. A group of 300 came from Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, but most of them are going to be Cuban. And look how proud they are to like flex the country that's in front. They're throwing like
that guy's on his phone.
He's like on like Instagram Live already. Yeah, they're flexing on us when they come in.
So what am I looking at? Are we in the United States? Is this footage in the United States?
Yeah. So Sevan, this is around 9 a.m. This was just last Friday. We took this in Eagle Pass, and so many migrants came at one time that Border Patrol couldn't put them in trucks. So that's why you actually see them walking on a highway. And down that highway, there was already a group of 80, and this was at 9 a.m. This is like to get the day started for Border Patrol.
Now these people want to be caught, right?
But look at this. Yeah,
they're not running, right?
Comes up. Look, right. This dude is like, this dude just flipped us off. You saw the dude in the yellow shirt just flipped us off.
It's like a line to get into a music festival.
So they made it. They know these people made it.
Oh, dude, these people made it. They're all good to go. That's why, like, no other country is doing what we're doing. And every time I'm at the border, the thing that's always shocking me is like, this is just in one area that we're able to be at 9 a.m. I mean, can you only imagine what's going on in the rest of the border? This is a little small a portion, but this is what was shocking is like, this is what Border Patrol and local law enforcement. This is like them starting off their morning, and they're completely overwhelmed. And basically, they're all Uber drivers for these immigrants now, because they're like picking them up, taking them to processing centers. But this is crazy. This happens on a daily basis. So I mean, we could send the White House this video. This was less than a week ago.
So where do these people go from here? They go straight to a COVID testing center?
No. They'll go to
that's my question. Like,
no, come on, you know that. No, they'll go to a processing center. Obviously, they'll try to they'll run identification, try to get their IDs with DNA, fingerprints, all that type of stuff. Then what's happening right now is they're so overwhelmed that majority of them they're being dropped off at an NGO or like a Catholic charity. And then the Catholic charity and that NGO will then organize a travel for those migrants.
This is in the United States.
No,
our government passes them off to some non-governmental organization.
Yeah. Now, very few people will get actually like deported or like Title 42. So if you're like a single male coming out without a family, you're most likely going to be deported, especially if you're coming from Central America. So if you're like a Salvadorian male, Nicaraguan male, Guatemalan male, you got like 0% chance if you're coming by yourself. Right now, there's a loophole with the Venezuelans. That's why you see a lot of Venezuelan men coming because they know they're being let in and then processed in. So a lot of Venezuelan men are coming right now with no families. That's why you're seeing that.
That's why there were no Mexicans. You're saying that those weren't Mexicans.
No. There's a kind of a myth about the border that like it's Mexicans who are the Mexicans are not involved in this border crisis at all, and they've not been involved in a long time. And the reason why Mexicans don't cross is because Mexico and United States have an agreement where if a Mexican national crosses illegally, they could be criminally charged and then immediately deported. So no Mexican even tries. The only Mexican nationals that are crossing illegally are literally like the guys that are called gotaways. So they're not trying to be apprehended either because they already have a past criminal record here in the United States, or they're running drugs, fentanyl. You'll see them in the camouflage clothes. They'll have like what is called carpet shoes. So when they're out there in the deserts or whatever, they don't leave any footprints. So those are the Mexican nationals coming in. So Mexicans are not causing it. Also in that video, I want to point out for the audience, because they'll probably find this pretty interesting, is you'll see a lot of Cubans, right? So the question I always get is why why are so many Cubans getting to Mexico? How are they, they're in an island. So when I interview these Cubans, the story that I keep getting from Yuma to Texas is they say, well, Jorge, what we do is we actually buy a ticket to Nicaragua and fly into Nicaragua. So Cubans can't fly into Mexico because Mexico requires a travel visa for those Cubans. So the Cubans don't do that route. Nicaragua has a very leftist, you could call him a president, you could call him a dictator, whatever, president, Daniel Ortega. So him and Cuba have a very, very friendly relationship. They always had for years. So Cubans can fly into Nicaragua, Nicaraguans can fly into Cuba without any travel visa. It's not required. So what Cubans tell me is the Cubans that you are seeing fly in are mostly in the middle class. So a lot of doctors are coming in because the tickets to fly to Nicaragua, from what I'm hearing, cost between $2,000 to $6,000, right? So basically, the Cuban officials know that any Cuban buying a flight to Nicaragua is obviously not coming back. Like, no Cuban is flying to Nicaragua right now for a fucking vacation. They know they're flying into Nicaragua to obviously get into Mexico, and for Mexico make that journey to the U.S.
And the whole thing's making a mockery over all the COVID stuff. If you were to guess, how many people do you think have come across the border without a COVID test? 1,000? 100,000?
Oh, that's baby numbers. I would say like over 2.5 million just to play conservative, 3 million just to play conservative.
Oh, wow.
So the whole COVID thing's just a mockery. It's a complete joke. We're just letting people in over the border.
Yeah, I mean, even like I said, even last year in September, when I was interviewing those Haitians, they weren't even testing the Haitians. So that's the whole testing the migrants before being let out have that's already been done, dude. That's been done. I would say, I don't know, man, probably more than a year and a half ago now.
I wonder what the vaccination rate is of people who cross the border.
That's a good question. I'm in Yuma, Arizona now. I'm at the border, so I'm actually going to go out tonight. We were probably going to do some interviews of migrants if they've been tested or not, and then kind of just see what's up. But I guarantee you that 60% have not been tested, probably even more.
Fucking nuts. And meanwhile, the greatest tennis player who ever lived can't just come hit a ball around in New York City.
Dude, Novak can't catch a break in Australia or the U.S. It's fucking bull. It's BS, dude.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on the myocarditis thing? All the people dropping? Is it just a right wing nut job conspiracy, or is?
Dude, I'm gonna be honest, bro. I haven't even looked into it. I've been so border focused, man. Ever since May, the ending of Title 42, and then Uvalde. And the border has this, so I've been so like just this is the grind, dude. I kind of tuned out at a lot of stuff, and but hey, that's just part of the job at this point.
Right. Okay. Jorge is not telling the truth there. He has been doing other things, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what else he's been doing. Also, run the trailer, Mr. Souza, please. We're taking a 1:37 break. Enjoy this trailer of Jorge Ventura's new documentary.
Well. God damn it.
You have to understand our frustration that we have been going through this for years. Did you know that one of our citizens got attacked on her property, walking her dog by one of the pot growers' dogs? So when a stray bullet comes and hits one of my children or me, I swear to God, on a stack of Bibles, I will go out and I will.
Yeah, you can take marijuana, you can take water regulation. Let's go down the line.
We have no allies in the state government.
Is there a rough estimate of how many cartel members are here right now?
Conservative estimate, 10,000.
10,000
Yeah,
people.
I'd say conservative estimate.
Just California.
Just in California. These are organized crime groups, highly structured, well-funded, very aggressive, well-armed, in our forests all over California.
They interviewed one of our sheriff deputies, head rats, and he just said, we don't have enough resources to stop them if they ever come here. And then, bam, they were here.
All of a sudden, you had 1,000 people show up who wanted to vote, who all came from out of the area, who all just happened to be growing illegal marijuana. It was kind of like, well.
And it blew up.
As the enforcement started to dwindle, they rapidly increased.
I want some sort of acknowledgement that it's a problem. I have yet to even hear that.
They are racist.
Who?
The communists.
It's the whole racist twist to that was fucking cracking me up. It was cracking me up.
Yeah, we just put that. That was a fun.
Everyone's screaming it now. You have 2 tons of marijuana in the back of your truck, illegally grown. Stop being. You're just because you're racist. Like,
yeah. That was some Hmong growers up in Siskiyou County, up in NorCal, man. It gets wild up there.
10,000. Do you think that that's actually? So there's 115,000 institutional prisoners in California. That the California has 115,000 approximately people, inmates. Are you telling me that there's 10,000? Do you think that could be actually accurate? Cartel members?
Yeah. So the guy
in California, I mean, that's a fucking army.
Yeah. So the guy who said that, his name is
Literally.
He's absolutely fascinating. I gotta actually connect you guys with him, man. You gotta have him on. So his name is John Norris. He is a retired game warden sergeant with the game wardens of California. So what's fascinating about John is he developed their very first marijuana enforcement team. So like basically getting these game wardens to raiding Mexican grows, and he developed the first Delta team, which is basically a sniper team that helps out these game wardens basically raid these cartel grows. So basically John, just like his quick story is, he was a regular game warden in California, as a guy who loved the wildlife, grew up loving it. His father raised him on that. And one day around 2005, 2006, he was out in Northern California, and he found a creek that he saw that the water was being diverted. So he was like, okay, well, let me follow the creek. And what he was expecting is, I'm going to run into a rancher or farmer, whatever, that was just diverting the water for their cattle, whatever. Probably write him a ticket. That's like the basic stuff. So he follows this creek, and then he follows it, and he basically discovers this like 7,000 marijuana operation. This is on the California National Park. So these are on public property. So basically finds this 7,000 marijuana field, and notices the guys that are working this field basically are heavily armed, long guns, camouflage Mexican nationals. He basically alerted the local officials. They were able to raid that grow. I believe a year later, he stumbles on another marijuana operation with another game warden. This time, unfortunately, they were shot upon, and his game warden was shot between the legs. So John had to like carry his game warden out of there, and then because they're in these rural parts of California, I mean, very rural, basically no cell phone service. They waited like 3 hours for a helicopter to come save him. So basically, I discovered John's story on the Joe Rogan podcast. This was back in 2019. I was in community college, so I was a student journalist. I heard this when I was working in Uber, and when I heard about cartel and illegal marijuana operations in California, I thought, to me, this is one of the more fascinating subjects ever. But at that time, since I was a college student, I couldn't do much about it. I didn't know much about journalism. Obviously, last year, as you guys know, I was on your guys' podcast. We dropped the very first documentary that I've done on this subject, Cartelville. It was on this subject, but it was in the Southern California desert, which is a completely new thing. So in the Southern California deserts, this is a new problem. And it's not just, so I could just say the context for the audience again, for those who didn't listen at least to the last episode.
Thank you.
This is not the Cheech and Chong, like hippies, like growing pot. This is not also like, for instance, like I know there's parts of California where like the legal plant count could be like 99 plants and someone could have like 150. We're not worried about those people. We're worried about the people who are legit cartel crime. So Mexican nationals, Hmong, Chinese, we're seeing a lot of Russians, and we're seeing the Armenians involved in these huge illegal marijuana.
I thought we talked about that on the last show. And
the thing is, they're involved in, obviously you need, water to grow the weed, and the water's being stolen. So the huge issue here is the water theft. So if you don't live in California, you might not understand, but our state is in the biggest drought ever, historic drought. So these cartel people are basically stealing all the water, growing the weed for free. A lot of the people that are even working on these grows are basically migrants that are being forced to work on these grows. We interviewed those people, a couple of those folks that were witnesses in the first documentary, Cartelville. We interviewed a firefighter. He didn't make it in the documentary, but he was a firefighter from Shasta County. He actually saved 3 migrants that were being forced to work on the grow. Basically, there was a wildfire out there in Northern California, which happens basically all the time. And these migrants were so scared to leave the grow that they actually were burning up and almost died until this firefighter saved them. And then the firefighter said, "Hey, how did you guys end up in this business?" They said, "We were actually in a Home Depot like 3 hours away from here. We got picked up thinking that we were going to work a regular like labor job, like construction. And all of a sudden, we're in the middle of nowhere in the freaking mountains, and we're being told that we have to grow this pot." So it's crazy. So basically, Sevan, just to give you a quick breakdown, after we put out our first documentary, Cartelville, I got called by a former guy that used to be in law enforcement for years up in Northern California. He gives me a ring. He said, "Jorge, I saw your documentary. I loved it." He said, "But in where you live, so where I live is LA County, we have about over 500 illegal grows. I think that number is probably over 600 now. Like I said, it's a new thing where we live in the SoCal deserts. The county next door, which is San Bernardino, they're about at 1,200 illegal grows. So it's a pretty big deal now for us. But in one county, just Siskiyou County, they're estimated between 7,000 to 10,000 illegal grows. So I mean, they're seeing this problem at a scale times 100. And basically, our documentary goes into telling the stories of what these communities, very, very poor, very rural communities. I'm talking about ranchers and farmers. We were in a town called Doris, California, which I never heard of till I went there. Doris is like this town near Oregon. So we're like in the border state line near Oregon with like barely like 1,000 people. And you're seeing this town with like barely 1,000 people with like 1 or 2 sheriffs deal with a cartel problem. It's absolutely fascinating. And to me, it's even more fascinating that it's not even like a national issue yet. This issue, after spending a lot of time in Northern California, has not just become a Northern California issue. There are a lot of Southern Oregon. So a lot of Southern Oregon is seeing a Mexican national cartel being involved in their illegal grows. So a lot of these guys are going back and forth between Southern Oregon and Northern California and bringing supplies, men, water, whatever they need.
Souza, how many people live in Siskiyou County? I think in the documentary they said it was 44,000. Could that be right? It's that small?
So it's 40. And the thing is, this is Siskiyou County is a massive county when we talk about land mass. We're talking about like state, it kind of like similar states of like Rhode Island, Delaware. Like it's huge. Okay. So you'll find little pockets in towns with like people barely like 1,000 people, 5,000 people. It's very rural. So let me just put it in perspective. So these communities are mostly white, working class ranchers and farmers. You'll have a big population of also Hispanic ranchers out there, workers out there working in the fields. Around 2013, 2016-ish, they started to see a huge wave of Hmong come into these very poor.
What's a Hmong? Pull up a Hmong for me.
Hmong is like God, how do you want to get this wrong? But they're Asian.
Chinese dude.
It's like It's like a Vietnamese island, like islander is what I heard. But here, bring it up, Matthew, because I don't want to get this. I don't want to get canceled for
Hmong,
for this.
M-U-N-G, Hmong.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it's
H.
HMOUN.
Yeah, there it is.
Hmong are the ethnic group of people with specific language and culture. Okay, thank you. They originally came from China, over 4,000 years of history. Some Hmong left China to Vietnam and Laos, Thailand, Burma, beginning in the early 1800s as a result of Okay. When I mean, the guys you interviewed, from my eye, they don't look Vietnamese. They look Chinese.
Well, they were those guys were Hmong. So basically, just to give you guys some perspective, a lot of the Hmong community helped the Americans back in the Vietnam War. They fought side by side, and a lot of those Hmong, they then moved to the state of Minnesota over the years. So basically, what happened is around 2013 to 2016, the communities in Siskiyou and also Shasta County up there started to notice a huge influx of these Hmong people, this Hmong community, right, coming into their communities. And they also noticed that the license plates, all of the cars, mostly all came from Minnesota. So around this time, we're seeing the kind of Hmong migration from Minnesota down to these communities. And if you interview the Hmong people, they say, well, we started coming around this time because land was very, very cheap. And this land kind of similar as our land back in the homeland. So they started moving into these communities around this time in 2016.
Are you calling horse shit on that? You call horse shit on that, or you buy that?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I'm saying for some of them, there are very good people that are literally there just to farm.
But do you think that they really moved there because of a similar geographic conditions and weather conditions to their homeland, and because land was cheap, or do you think that they were being seduced there for work? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm talking about very, very extremely cheap out there in Siskiyou County. But you started to have some players. One guy's name is Moon-Young Lee. So Moon-Young Lee migrates from Minnesota to this part and buys massive parts of land, and buys what these things are called, like these little parcels on these land. Now, these parcels are only supposed to have like one property owner, like one or two people basically living on there. And what he does is he starts bringing in his family from Minnesota. And then other Hmong people start to do the same thing, where they basically buy pieces of land, bring in many family members. So the community starts growing, and it's obviously in these rural communities, it's quick to pick it up. Around 2016,
typical migrant move, right? I'm sure your families did that when they came from El Salvador. I know my family did that when they come from Lebanon, Beirut. You bring one brother comes over, and he brings over eight more, and they all live in the same apartment, right? Okay,
yeah. So that's what we start to see here. But the thing is you notice it quicker when it's a very, very poor rural community, and you're like, wait a minute, sums up. Around 2016, and I'm just summing this up real quick. I don't want to give the whole story, but like around 2016, there was a county clerk for Siskiyou County. She starts to notice that for their registered voters, they got over 500 new registered voters. She's like, hold on, this is huge already for a small community. Looks up those registered voters. All of those registered voters have Asian names. Starts to look up the names and starts to see that those names are also registered in other counties. So she calls the sheriffs. They call the state of California. They start to investigate. We interview a sheriff. What he told me is they start to interview these Hmong property owners. They said one parcel, that it was a huge red flag. One parcel had 55 registered voters. And around this time is they're seeing the huge influx of the illegal marijuana grows. And what those sheriffs told me, he's like, Jorge, even to do those interviews with those property owners, we had to go in there strapped, because at this time, the Hmong people are already strapped. They're already starting to grow marijuana illegally, and they're starting to get into this black market business. So basically, our documentary goes into the story of the Hmong, this illegal marijuana kind of black business operations, and telling the story of that, and kind of the new twist to the tale. Because right now we know about the cartels of the Mexican nationals, Russians, all of that. Obviously, we have John Norris in there. John Norris brings in the stories of the days where he fought basically Mexican nationals in California national parks. That's still happening to this day. But we wanted to show people what was going on with these Hmong communities, because I find it fascinating that they were registering to vote. They're looking to play a role in local politics. And the people up there are very, very worried of what's going on. And like I said, these are poor rural communities. You can obviously see it in the trailer. The woman was like worried about her kids, saying, hey, if something happens to my kids, a bullet comes in, I'm going to raise hell, whatever. That was actually a town hall in Dolores, California. One of those ranchers actually presses the DA and says, hey, if I shoot one of these cartel guys, am I gonna get charged with homicide, like for defending myself? Like these guys are on my property, long guns, AKs, and these are real stories going on in Northern California that a lot of people just have no idea. But people in Northern California kind of know, but they want this stuff more of a with a national spotlight.
The Chinese who were in Cartel Land in your first documentary, they weren't bosses, right? They were working off deals that they had for getting immigration into the country, right? But now we're seeing Chinese Hmongs who are actual bosses. We're seeing some bosses.
They're still Chinese bosses. It's just that the day that we went embedded with the San Bernardino County sheriffs, and when they raided these girls, when they raided these girls, it was just the workers that got caught that day. Like those guys didn't even speak English. Like straight Chinese nationals didn't even speak English. And that's what you're seeing most of these on like most of the girls. It's always going to be like the low level guys. You'll even see it on this documentary when we were embedded with Siskiyou County and they raid girls. Most of the people caught are literally just workers. Like they're not the powerful people are never like on the girls because they know the chances of getting caught, the chances of getting raided, and they don't want to obviously get arrested or anything. The interesting thing too is we interviewed those people. Those people were a married couple from Minnesota who were there for a whole month who haven't even been paid yet. We asked them, like, "Have you even been paid?" Haven't been paid.
The good-looking Chinese couple that you kind of had blurred out. Those people?
Yeah.
They hadn't been paid in a month?
They've been working 30 days. They're new to the whole game and they haven't been paid.
And they're calling the cops racist?
Yeah, that's crazy.
The other key here is because these are poor rural communities, you're actually watching this, there's another story. We actually might dive deeper later, but of what these sheriffs have to go through. These guys are some of the lowest funded people in the state. So like we were in Siskiyou County, their county sheriff is the youngest sheriff in the whole state of California. So you have this 37-year-old fresh guy with a lot of energy. He's a good guy, Jeremiah LaRue, who has a cartel problem yet has no funding to take on the issue. I talked to some of their sheriff deputies in Siskiyou County. I said, what do you guys get paid or how come you guys can't attract people? It's like, dude, no one wants to battle cartels or be raiding illegal grows for like $20 an hour. That's what they start off on in Siskiyou
They don't want to get killed. They don't want to get killed.
That's crazy.
And even really quick, even those like little tractors that you guys saw in the trailer, like they're like, raiding the grows or like picking up the stuff. Those are actually loaned by like a local rancher. So if like if a rancher didn't give the sheriff department those like tractors, the sheriffs couldn't even afford to even have their own tractors and stuff like that. So that's how poor these communities are, and it makes a perfect target for the Hmong community, Chinese nationals, and the Mexicans for illegal marijuana operations because everything is on their side. They know that these are poor rural communities, so they don't have the resources to take them on. The state of California, essentially, with 2016, when they made marijuana illegal, then they made the illegal cultivation, which used to be a felony, down to a misdemeanor. It kind of gave these guys more rights. So when I talked to John Norris, the game warden, when he told me, he said, "Hey, Jorge, back in the day, when these Mexican nationals were on the California national parks, it was easier to take them on because you didn't really need a search warrant because they're already on public land. Now they own these properties and you need a search warrant." Wow. They kind of know how to, it's kind of a loophole. So they're kind of using what he said, according to their words, is you have these guys using the Constitution almost against us. And they're being so far running the playbook to, successfully.
This is kind of an interesting comment here. What is colonization of another nation called if it's legalized, encouraged, and then voted for? It is interesting to think like you look back in 200 years and you could be like, oh yeah, the United States was colonized by Latins and Chinese. I mean, the story could be so easily spun that it was just a colonization of the country. Another interesting thing is they'll have spotters. The cops will roll in. And 50 people will leave, and they can't even stop any of them because they have no proof. They have no proof, right? All of a sudden, they're coming down a road to do a raid, and they see 50 cars drive by them. What can they do?
Yeah, from a reporter perspective, it was really cool to see that because we didn't see that in our like with the Mexicans in the deserts. They don't do that shit, and like that's just not their game because it's a completely different game in the deserts. But out there, since the Hmong a little bit more tightly close together, the Hmong communities, they have lookouts. So when the cops even go in for the raids, they're on the phones and you'll see like 50 cars like just getting out of there. And by the time the cops show up, there's like few people. I mean, it was even lucky that they even got people that day. And it was great because we got them on camera and we got to interview them. But it's fascinating stuff out there, and it's a completely different world. Just to put in perspective, there was we were out there also. There was another county called Lassen County. Lassen County is as big as the state of Rhode Island, and we interviewed this rancher out there who basically called the sheriff deputies because he had these cartel guys stealing water, threatening him, whatever. He calls the sheriff deputies, and these guys are like, hey, man, we have 2 deputies for the whole county. We literally can't send anyone to you. I can't risk any of my deputies. And it's kind of really, man, like you're all on your own out there because the local law enforcement doesn't have the resources. A lot of the people out there do feel that Sacramento and Gavin Newsom, they don't want to address the issue because this is happening under Newsom, and now we have Newsom.
Well, they say it in your documentary. It's because, hey, we didn't vote for Newsom, so now he's not protecting us. Basically,
exactly.
we voted Republican, so we're fucked.
Also, for people who are not in California, when you're up in Northern California, it is almost a completely different state from Southern California. So don't think like San Francisco, LA. This is almost like you're in kind of Kansas, middle of nowhere, ranchers, farmers. Like these people
biggest
are like
forest you've ever seen, too. Crazy forests.
Yeah, overwhelmingly Republican. We were in Lassen County, and Lassen County voted to recall Newsom by 83%. So that county like led the county in the recall. So it's that type of community. So they feel that because they were so against Newsom and the recall and other issues, they're gonna get no help on this one.
One of the stats in the movie was that 80% of the marijuana grows in the state of California, I'm looking to make sure I got this right, are illegal. 80% of marijuana grows don't pay taxes. What I thought the deal was we were going to make marijuana legal in California, and that was going to make all the cartel crime go away. How come like Marlboro hasn't come in and just taken over the marijuana industry? How come you know what I mean? How come Dejarum or American Spirit? Why is it because it's still illegal federally and big companies don't want to get involved?
I think it's because it's still illegal federally, and I know there's something with the banks and stuff like that. What I could just tell you from the fascinating thing with the illegal and legal thing right now, and for people out there, I would highly recommend to do some research after this because I think it's one of more of the fascinating subjects. So in 2016, when this was legalized, I thought like just even being in California, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. You know, people are not going to go to jail for like smoking a dime bag. Just, get it off. And plus, we could do it legally. So then, you can actually go to a store and not have to like call like a dude in the middle of the night, like, hey, man, can I get a dime bag?
Crime should drop. Everything should be, it should just be part of the agricultural industry.
The state of California could tax it. I just thought like, oh, yeah, this is going to be awesome. Great. So over the years, what happened is, and what some of the legal weed guys told me is like, Jorge, back in the day, it was awesome, right? Because we could sell a pound. And we would sell a pound of weed. This is the market was for $1,200. The state of California will then tax that $1,200 for about $150. So it was great. Business was great. Fast forward to today, right now, because of the market is so oversaturated, and because of the illegal side, the market is you sell a pound for $300, and the state of California still wants $150 on it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what's happening right now is, if you guys don't know, is the legal weed side is urging Gavin Newsom. I believe it's like $100 million bailout. They're also they're telling Newsom to like relax the taxes for about 3 years to save the legal weed side, because the legal weed side is being destroyed by the black market. And it's really struggling to survive. The only really legal weed business that's surviving in California right now are like the semi-big companies, but like the small mom and pop shops are almost done. They're looking
so people
for
are still buying. If me and you were, if I was still in college, I probably wouldn't be using a dispensary. I'd just be buying weed just from the same guy I bought it. Like people are still buying bags from like the dealers in their neighborhoods and shit.
No. Like regular folks in Cali, like college kids are going to a dispensary, they're buying pot. Like they're still going. Like that's still happening. It's just that in California, the market, there's just so many weed businesses, and the illegal side, it's really just destroyed all of it. So
how is that 80% getting into?
Basically, like the people who are buying the illegal weed, there is people that are going to those, to those businesses that are just buying it illegally, so there's no taxes. There's a lot of dispensaries that are like basically like the fake black market dispensaries. So they might be set up like legally, but they're illegal, black market. So that's all around South LA. I was actually interviewing legal weed guy about the fake shops. But the
So
big thing is,
80% of this illegal weed is still somehow making its way into the legal market. It's still going through dispensaries.
well, no. A lot of the illegal weed, the majority is actually being shipped to the East Coast, to the states where it's not legal yet. So that's where the majority, for a lot of these cartel guys, like the what you guys are seeing in the documentary, that weed is not staying in California. That is going all to the East Coast for triple the profits. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how do you suspect they're moving that? Because that's one of the things, right? Like, how are they first buying the land? Who are they buying the land for? Or are they buying the land? Are they showing up on public property and setting up? And then how are they moving the marijuana out of there?
So there's a couple different ways. So I'll start off with how we did it in our first documentary, Cartelville. So out there in Antelope Valley, California, it's like desert, it's a rural community. So two of the ways is, one of the ways was simply just what we call is a squatting, right? So just finding a piece of land that no one is out there and literally just setting up an illegal marijuana site and just get into business. It's that rule up there where you could do things like that. The other is literally just buying a property, cash. And the thing is, what makes the cartel buyers attractive to the sellers is they're willing to pay way above market for cash. So one thing that we touched upon, one thing that we didn't touch upon on the second documentary that we really hammered on the first one because we already talked about in Cartelville, was the effect that these guys were having on the real estate market. We interviewed that former real estate agent that was like, dude, these guys are out here selling property for like 3-4 times the rate, and they're like literally basically they're buying so many properties, they're turning into cartel neighborhoods because no one could compete with them. And if you're a seller, and you're out there in the middle of nowhere, and these guys come up and say, hey, man, you know your property, your little shitty property out here in the middle of nowhere that no one wants, that has no access to water. Yeah, you have it on the market for like $150K. Well, here's $350K cash. Get out by the first. Just shut your mouth. And then,
like, oh, yes, sir, we're out of here.
It really is like that, huh?
Yeah. So
just come in and buy
like I said, that's what I was saying, Matthew. When I talked to the law enforcement, they told me, he said, Jorge, in 2016, that making it the felonies, basically instead of a felony to a misdemeanor, making weed basically legal statewide, it gives all the basically power to the property owner now, because they can now use a constitution against law enforcement. So that's why it makes it harder to raid these grows. You could even go out there and be like, dude, there's a 5,000 plants. You guys can't just raid them. You need a search warrant. You need all that. You need all the little BS before you even do that raid. So that's what kind of makes it a little bit difficulty for law enforcement right now.
And how are they moving these massive amounts of weed to the East Coast? Trucks?
As of right now, one of the things that I found just from witnesses and guys on the ground is like U-Haul trucks. So literally packing up in U-Haul trucks and just driving them across state lines. And we talked to like property owners in Northern California that like just follow them with like cameras and stuff like that. And I'm sure they have other ways to move them because marijuana is nowadays and age is not that difficult to move anymore, but these guys are figuring out that by the masses.
Yeah, the reason why I asked is about 10 years ago, I knew a guy in Ukiah that was moving a lot of it to the East Coast as well, and he was just straight up using the mail systems.
Yep.
Just packaging it in a box and sending it out. It was crazy.
Yeah, I know a few, like I had some friends back in the day who were involved in that type of world, and the way that they used to move it, it was all through the mail system with like all types of wrappers and like all type. I mean, but it was all possible. I mean, these guys were like 17 years old and moving weight to the East Coast. I'm sure the cartel guys are doing around the same thing. But one of the tactics that I found was the U-Haul trucks. And a quick story that I wanted to share, also from the documentary that like always stood out is we interviewed a retired school teacher, right? So she's like on a fixed income. And she owned this property up in Shasta County near Whiskeytown Lake. And what she told us is that she hadn't been on the property for about 3 months. So she sent her son up there. She said, hey, go check on the wells, make sure everything's all right. So he goes, checks up on the wells, and he goes and discovers 10 Mexican nationals heavily armed with campsites on their property, and they were already pumping water from their well with black poly pipe. So obviously he freaks out, calls law enforcement. The law enforcement goes, basically scares those guys out of there. But it kind of lets you know like just how blatant they are. Like they literally had set up campsites on her property. They had black poly pipe, everything. We're pumping water every single day. And these are the type of stories that we're hearing up in Northern California, and they're all around this issue. And like I said, it's trickled into Southern Oregon, so we're seeing some of that in Southern Oregon. So we'll kind of see how that kind of develops in these next kind of couple of years. But I kind of feeling, man, that the legal weed side is almost set to fail, unfortunately, in California if they can't get a bailout, they can't relax those taxes on these guys.
If it was legalized federally, do you think the whole thing would go away?
It's hard to tell. I mean, I think
the banks would then open up. That bank issue, I forgot about that. Also, that's another problem.
The biggest thing, because when I talk to guys, that's like the thing that's always holding them back. And when I talk to a lot of guys that want to do it legally, they're like, "Hey, man, I want to do it legally, but it's like the taxes and this issue. It's like murdering us. Just even do it legally. Then these other guys don't even have to worry about taxes, the water, or none of that. They don't even have to worry about the labor rights or paying like an hourly wage for the workers. So you really can't compete with these guys.
That's crazy.
Hey, any other drugs besides marijuana?
I mean, these same guys are involved in the fentanyl game and the other issues. We just point out to this game particular because there's so much things attached to it. And when people kind of think marijuana now, it's like, hey, it's just, hippies growing pot. And I get it. Like, this is not like a anti-reefer madness type of thing. This is like, hey, because these guys are doing it illegally in the way they are, there's a water theft issue. So the amount of water that's being stolen. I mean, just in Southern California, they estimated that from the water theft every day that California is losing between 3 million to 9.5 million gallons a day of just of the illegal grows. And that's just in SoCal. Crazy. We're not even talking about even Northern California yet. There's also a chemical issue. I didn't even really get into the chemicals, but all the chemicals that they spray, these toxins, they're coming in from Mexico. They're actually banned in the U.S., and they're sprayed on these plants, so wildlife out there in these rural areas can't eat the plants. The issue is that these chemicals are so deadly that they're killing wildlife out there, but they're also destroying just the environment. And a lot of these chemicals will actually seep into the water beds and make it into the water. I'm from the Antelope Valley in Southern California, so like when these cartels are out there in the SoCal, and we saw that in Cartelville, is we have the Joshua trees. So we actually have a tree that is protected by the state of California, and like out there, the Joshua tree is kind of like an emblem of my hometown, man. It's kind of tied to Palmdale and the Antelope Valley.
They're endangered, aren't they? You can't just go out and cut one of those down, right?
You cannot. Yeah, you can't. It's actually, I think it's against the law or so against some type of code if you do that. But those guys are out there like destroying all the Joshua trees and making flat land to start their illegal grows. And they're not. And the thing is, those guys are not getting even like a ticket. And then if there's like a rancher out there and if he uses too much water accidentally, the state of California will like come down on the guy with fines and like shut down his water. But like these cartel guys are like able to do whatever they want out there at this point. Like they're literally destroying all these Joshua trees and all the environment, and they don't get hit for it. They don't get misdemeanor. I mean, they're operating freely. And that's just because, I mean, law enforcement doesn't have the manpower. But if you're a rancher and if you use too much water one day, the state of California will fucking come after you with everything they got.
Yep.
I mean, that's really where we're at.
They'll take your shit. By the way, on a complete side note, if you are ever in California and you get a chance to go out and see these Joshua trees, those pictures did not do it justice. It is some sort of weird phenomenon. You'll be driving along the road, and then all of a sudden you're in the Joshua tree. And they were like, you look behind you and there's not a single one. And you look in front of you and the land's covered with them. And the other places also, you've got to go see the giant sequoias. If you've never seen the giant sequoias, and then if you're in Africa, you got to see the baobab trees. I'm kind of a tree nut. Those three trees are some of the craziest trees. The giant sequoia, the baobab in Africa, and these Joshua trees are bizarre. They're not even from this planet.
Yeah, I think like the Joshua trees, I think like where I live out there in Southern California, it's like the only climate in the world or whatever where like these things could even be grown. So it's a kind of important thing, man. But like I said, these guys are out there just operating freely, doing whatever the hell they want, threatening.
In your documentary, you showed a section of river that was, I think, 2 miles long. They had fucking killed everything.
Yeah, just pumping
nuts.
it, black poly pipe. So these guys are like sophisticated guys. Like these guys are like hardworking. You could even hear it in the John Rogan podcast where like Joe Rogan's like, dude, if these guys were like in the just operating like in an illegal business, these guys are like some of the hardest working guys ever because they're out there trekking miles, they're bringing poly pipe, and they're out there living on that land. So these guys are like hardworking individuals that like know how to work with the tools that they got.
Going back to John Norris, there's another crazy statistic you give. We talked about the 10,000 cartel members living in California, but how about this statistic? What was it here? 25% of all California game wardens are tasked to fighting fucking. Oh, here it is. 25% of state game wardens are assigned to cannabis enforcement teams. What
I'm
the
actually
fuck?
so glad you brought this up, dude.
How is that? I mean, I thought they're supposed to be protecting Smokey the Bear and like making sure like taking dead deer off the road and shit and yelling at camp people for starting fires.
So I'm actually really glad you brought this up, man, because the game warden thing is actually another angle to the story that's happening in California. And I'll start off with John Norris. So the way John explained it to me is he said, hey, Jorge, like game wardens are supposed to be out there, basically giving guys tickets if they're out there hunting, like at night. They call that like spotlight shooting or something like that. That's a huge thing. If they're out there, diverting water, hunting endangered animals, stuff like that. And that's why
fishing without a license.
Yeah, fishing without a license. That's why he joined. And then, like I said earlier, guys, around 03, 04, he stumbles on these marijuana grows. And the passion for John is to see that how these guys were just wrecking the environment, the amount of chemicals, the water theft, how they were just destroying everything. He wanted the game wardens to get behind it. So game wardens all of a sudden in California went from just all that stuff to now we have a cartel issue. The issue is game wardens for a good period of that time and a good effort from John's effort, but for a good effort that time, game wardens weren't even that respected by law enforcement guys. So these guys weren't getting paid the best. For those who don't know, game wardens training is very difficult. So they have to do everything that like a police officer has to do or like a sheriff deputy have to do. Then they have to do all the wildlife stuff. So they have to do all the law enforcement stuff because they're running into hunters with all types of guns and stuff and weapons. And they have to do all that and the wildlife stuff, yet they don't even get paid or the benefits like these other guys. And these game wardens are covering massive pieces of land. I mean, you can talk to some game wardens. They're like almost covering a whole county, just one dude. And a lot of the time, man, they're in these rural areas with no cell phone reception. So John was telling me that in his early days, he was working in Riverside County and he was running into California game bangers that were fishing in with weapons middle of the night. So that's what we're off with. But little by little, as this cartel problem started to develop in California, law enforcement in Northern California started working with game wardens. So game wardens started to get the funding, the training they started to need. Over time, John finally developed the marijuana enforcement team. Then they developed the Delta team, which is like a sniper team. A huge kind of helping these guys. And I recommend, if you guys haven't, look up a book. It's from John Norris. It's called War in the Woods. And how important these freaking canines are to stopping cartel guys. I mean, if these game wardens didn't have these canines, they would be in almost gunfire fights every time they're ready to grow. But these canines have been trained to basically go out there in the middle of nowhere and take on these Mexican nationals in the deserts. And these Mexican nationals have gotten smart, these cartel guys, and they develop basically booby traps for game wardens and for these canines. And a lot of these booby traps, I forgot the name of them, but John Norris said that some of these booby traps are kind of the same from Vietnam with the spikes and everything. So the Mexican nationals studied what the Vietnamese did back in the day, and they developed those same type of booby traps and those tactics out there in the mountains. But it's fascinating what these game wardens have to do. And for people who didn't know, these guys are out there full-on Delta team, getting dropped off in helicopters, fighting cartels out there. And John goes into it in his book called War in the Woods. And he has a couple other books in this, but it really tells the story of what game wardens have to go through in California. And
does he smoke weed? Does he smoke weed?
John doesn't, but I want to say this quick little story. So I was in Texas, staying at a hotel a couple months ago, and I'm just watching like their boring hotel TV, and I run across a game warden show, and obviously it's based on Texas game wardens. So I'm thinking, oh, man, it's about to be badass. And this is no disrespect to Texas game wardens, like.
I think it is.
Badass. Like, you guys are going to be taking on, like, I don't know, they're about to be doing badass Texas game warden stuff because after talking to John what the California guys go through, and I go on there and they're like busing guys for like fishing with like no light, like no light. That was like the show for 30 minutes. I'm like, what? That was it. I'm like, these guys in California are taking on.
It was like cops, but with game wardens in Texas.
Yeah, and it was the most boring stuff. I'm thinking like, oh, these guys are taking on cartels. I'm like, these guys are like busting guys for like fishing with no licenses. I'm like, wait a minute. The California version is way more entertaining. But and the funny thing is, John gave me this. So a lot of the game warden guys actually wear this in Called They call it the thin green line, and this basically is for all the game wardens in California who have to basically, out there taking on the cartels, middle of nowhere, and they're continuing to trying to raise this alarm. They're trying to also get more funding for these guys. They're trying to make the job more attractive, obviously higher salaries and higher benefits, because it's a pretty big task to tell someone, hey, do you want to take on cartels in California national parks? Because you not only have to be an expert in the weapons and how to handle those high pressure situations, but you got to also be an expert, like I said, in the game warden, the wildlife, and kind of that area as well.
They are the lowest paid deputies in the state.
Yep. It's crazy, man. John, and look, if it wasn't for John, they probably would be paid a lot less. Like, John is like the one guy who's being vocal. A lot of these guys are like have been put on a gag order under the state of California, Gavin Newsom. So like while they're working, they can't say anything. But like as soon as they retire, like guys like John are a huge help because they go on a Joe Rogan podcast or making books. They inform me, dude. If it wasn't for John informing me, I wouldn't have no idea for this issue. And I learned about it when I was in college, and then I started covering the border. And that's when I met Congressman Mike Garcia, who said, "Hey, I'm worried about this issue because we got cartels in the deserts." And I said, "Wait a minute, I've heard about this in the podcast before, and I'm able to make the dots." And then after I put out Cartelville, the crazy thing is, after we put out Cartelville, John Norris actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, Jorge, I thought you did a great job and highlighted the issue." And I'm like, "Dude, I wouldn't even know about this if it wasn't for you, man." So it's kind of crazy how our worlds collided, me and John, and then. I'm so glad that John agreed to come up to Northern California. So he served a great role as an executive producer. He was up there in Northern California State with us for a week. He really informed us how the tactics, how the stuff they work, the shootouts. He was just a great asset. And then John was also was a big treat. Was he got to be embedded with us with Siskiyou County. So while Siskiyou County was raiding these girls, we got to have John there, and his expertise was really amazing. The thing that shocks John is, he saw it in the early days when like there was like maybe like 500 of these girls for the whole state of California. I mean, that number is laughable now. I mean, like I said, you got 500 just where I live in LA County, and then like in Siskiyou County, you got 10,000 just there alone. So I mean, that 500 number is so laughable now.
Is marijuana the largest crop by dollar wise in the United States?
Oh, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I'm not your plant guy.
Or do you ever suspect that any of these guys are on the take? Like if you're only making $50 or $20 an hour, wouldn't it be easy to just be like, hey,
there's a good chance, Matthew, if you could actually bring this one up, because this would be interesting. Is back in 2016, there was a Hmong couple that basically went up to the Siskiyou County sheriff. If you put like Siskiyou County sheriff Hmong bribe, maybe the story pops up. It should pop up. There was a married Hmong couple. I think they were married, but basically there was a Hmong couple. They went up to the Siskiyou County sheriff at that time, and they offered the sheriff $1 million in cash if the sheriff didn't raid their grows. Now, obviously, the sheriff immediately contacted the FBI, and they got that handled. But it kind of shows the money and the power that these guys have out there. There was also in the middle of the documentary, guys, we were supposed to interview a county board of supervisor. I don't want to say for what county. We were supposed to interview a county board of supervisor, and the very next day they were threatened by like one of the armed growers, and like they backed out. So they have real power. But I don't know if you have that story, Matthew, but it's interesting because they actually went
trying to look it up.
With $1 million. If you put Siskiyou County, it's spelled. Let me see if I can put it in the chat here.
I'm going to read this to you guys for a second. The cannabis is now the fifth. This is from 2021. Cannabis is now the fifth most valuable crop in the United States, behind corn, soybeans, hay, and wheat. It's a wholesale value of $6.2 billion. It passed cotton, rice, and peanuts. Crazy,
dude.
Crazy. Wow, who would have thought Alaska has $104 million of cannabis grown? That must be. Is that indoor?
That has to be.
Colorado 1 billion, Massachusetts 252, Nevada 433, Oregon 602.
Boom, that's the one, dude.
Wow. Okay, so it happens. It would be. It's pretty hard. Probably saying. It's probably pretty hard saying no to $1 million.
And a lot of these folks out there are making no money almost in their positions. I mean, these are very low wage jobs. So, a lot of these folks could be easily convinced, hey, look the other way. Look at this cash. I mean, so this sheriff, I mean, if he could have wanted to, could have easily took the $1 million cash and could have not said anything. But I mean, he immediately went to the FBI. Obviously, they got this couple. But to me, it also just shows that, the amount of money they're making in the black market, where they just got $1 million to just throw the sheriff to keep his mouth shut.
Hey, so one of the reasons this is an interesting statistic, and it gets so easily misrepresented by the left, which just sucks. But 3% of the county is Asian, and yet 78% of the illegal grow arrests are Asian. So it's at some point you get the picture there, right? They're not going after Asians; they're going after illegal grows. And it happens to be Asian. And it happens to be their business. You raid a carpet store, and it's in Southern California. It's going to be a bunch of Armenian dudes. I mean, it's the business they're in. You said that this kind of influx of Hmongs started in 2016, but also in the doc, the police are busting grows that are up to 10 years old. So that means this shit has been going on forever, and now finally it's exploding.
No, it's been going on for quite a while. It's just now we have the Hmong community getting involved, and now we're seeing the way they've kind of evolved in it. But this issue in Northern California isn't anything new. It's just that the explosion and now where it's at is something where it's kind of completely out of hand and where they can't handle it. And when I'm interviewing people down there, they feel that they need like the National Guard. Like they feel like they need Washington, D.C.
It's scary for them. They're scared.
Yeah. And it's gotten to that point. And, myself seeing it myself, it almost feels like if Washington, D.C. doesn't come in, this is never even going to get solved because most communities down there.
Not getting solved. Is it going to get worse? This is the craziest stat, and I've been saving this for last. Northern California has more missing people than the rest of all. Has more missing people than the rest of all of California. Fucking no one lives up there. How the fuck are they missing? I mean, dude. People need to understand there's counties with 44,000 people. We have neighborhoods in the rest of California that have 44,000 people. And yet these areas, I'm trying to look for the exact stat, but it was something like.
And really quick, I want to add to the thing that you brought up. It's a nickname up there. So when you're up there, a lot of these immigrants that are being forced to work on these grows or work on these grows, they're called trimmigrants. And a lot of the trimmigrants are the ones that go missing in the illegal weed. So that's another thing.
Meaning that they're bought into harvest plants to trim down the weed for sale.
The amount of people that go missing up there in Northern California connected to this illegal weed stuff is like it's really eerie, man. It's some scary stuff, and that's a huge issue as well as especially like Mendocino County. People go missing in Mendocino County, man.
Mendocino. Hey, have they ever uncovered like any burials where there's just like fucking 20 dead workers?
No, that would be some crazy shit. What actually has happened though is 2 weeks ago, I get called from a dude who told me that he just bought a piece of property and that we used to be a former grow and that everything was still there. So what he told me was he just bought this property and basically like the tarps and all that stuff is everything still there. He said he dug up a hole. They found basically bags of cash and ammos for long guns. And they looked up the original property name, and it was a Mexican national. So
did you tell him, hey, motherfucker, that's not an old grow. You bought a fucking current grow. You better get the fuck off the property.
Last year's grow.
Yeah, and he was a
like
funny
they're
dude.
at the store. Run.
He was kind of hippied out, and I was like, hey man, like, are you gonna turn this stuff over to law enforcement? And he was like, oh no, man, this stuff is like historic. I gotta keep this. So he's asked me to go look at it when I'm up in Northern California again.
Tell him I'll come up and look at it for some money. Hey, are there any like if you drive in Mexico, you shouldn't drive at night on any of the highways. A lot of the world is like that. Is it getting like that up in Northern California? Like I've never heard of that in the United States where it might not be safe to drive at night.
They have areas where the community there knows not to go. So like when I was in Shasta County, the one that I was like really shocked is they have a couple mountains up there where Amazon and UPS don't even deliver anymore. So the stories that I've heard over and over was when Amazon and UPS used to go up there, they would be threatened by Hmong armed growers, and after that, they're like, you know what? It's made like a company rule. They don't even deliver up there, so mail doesn't even go up there. Some of these mounds are so dangerous with these growers and armed growers that like let's say there's an emergency, like an ambulance needs a call or a firefighter. Those they've been ordered that they cannot attend to that 911 call unless they're accompanied with a sheriff deputy. So if they call a sheriff deputy, and if that sheriff deputy is on the other side of the county handling a whole other issue, they cannot handle that 911 call until that sheriff deputy can accompany them. So there's been times where they needed an ambulance, an emergency, and they've gone there like an hour and a half, 2 hours late.
Oh, wow.
Because they need an armed officer to be accompanying some of these areas they go to. One of the interviews that didn't make it in a documentary, but it was super fascinating, was this guy who starts up this cleaning business. Like, you know, he like cleans for like companies and like basically, you know, mass waste for other companies up in Chino, California. And little by little, the city starts contacting this guy and said, hey man, we need a company to basically clean up these illegal marijuana grows, and we keep putting out bids and no one wants to take them. Would you take them? Like, would you take the job if we paid you? So the guy's like, yeah. So the guy starts cleaning up these illegal marijuana grows with his team, and he notices really quickly why no one wants to take the job, because every time they have to clean these grows, they have to basically be in areas where there's active grows. So you basically, his chemical cleaning guys, they're out there in hazmats and bulletproof vests, cleaning these grows because law enforcement refuses to go up with the company. And the thing is, this guy is making a killing because the city keeps putting out these contracts, you know, overpaying, and no company wants to take them because no company wants to arm their guys.
It doesn't even sound like they have the resources to accompany them. If you only have two sheriffs, I mean, how are you supposed to do it?
This guy keeps naming his price to the city or whatever for the county, and is making like a freaking killing out there in Chino. But I mean, he's out there like, you know, they are, you know, he's obviously putting himself at risk because anytime they're out there. So I did an interview with this guy. I put on the whole hazmat. It was hilarious. His whole like bulletproof. I mean, it's funny, man. These guys are out there armed and they're cleaning out there. Like, these guys are not even meant for that type of work. But they said, like, dude, law enforcement refuses to come up with us. And when you hear these stories, man, over and over, like, the thing that just always plays in my head is this is happening in the United States. And like, it's, I mean, up in Northern California at this point, like, to some folks, it's like become a way of life. It's like so normal. When I'm in the California deserts, it's become a way of life. Like, people know there's no go zones. People know that, like, now to check your mail, you need a gun on you. It wasn't always like that. But that's life for these communities in Northern California. And it sucks because a lot of the communities out there, they live out there because they already hate the cities. They don't want to be in these cities in California where the crime and all these issues are already becoming a huge problem. They want to get away from that. And all
is there anywhere where they're assimilated with the cartel? Did you see any people who are assimilated with it? Like, they make money off it? Like, they sell them pots or fertilizer?
Well, I will say this. I mean,
like, where they've helped the economy?
A lot of in these rural communities, the people living there, some of these people benefit from the cartel because the owners of the tractor supply are making a freaking killing. I think like one of the highest tractor supplies in sales is in Siskiyou County, with like a town with like no one living there, and they're making a killing. So some of the owners of those businesses have communicated to the rancher, says, "Hey, dude, I hate what's going on, but I mean, business has never been better.
No, we've never sold so much black pipe."
Yeah, and like lumber, the black poly pipes, the tarps, I mean, all that stuff. Oh, dude, they're making a killing out there, the tractor supplies in Northern California.
Try growing up in Humboldt County. FBI shows up in all black SUVs and stays in one hotel. Whole county knows, and everyone goes underground. They bust one farm and leave. This shit I've seen is traumatizing. She also goes on to say, I can attest, we lived on a dairy ranch and we never called 911. That's why you need guns.
Damn.
Dude, it's crazy. To me, it's fascinating both of the communities, because I've seen both of the differences of like what Northern California in the deserts, and it's like the wild west in both areas, where it's like you gotta stay strapped, you gotta watch your back. It's like where you call your local sheriff and your sheriff's like, "Well, I'm an hour and a half away, so what do you want?"
You're shit out of luck.
That was a great accent. And you know what's crazy too, Jorge? The stuff at the border that you do always seemed more dangerous from the, you know, the 100,000-foot view. But now that you give us the granular details of the two jobs covering cartels in California versus the border seems safe.
No shit.
Like, all those people there look dangerous because they could potentially do something. They could all attack you. But the truth is they won. They're already there. They got what they want, right? They're in. We're in.
Yeah, I mean, both of them, posed their risk. Covering the border. Last year in October is when I was had the whole thing with the human smuggler drawing the gun on us and like threatening us.
I remember that.
So it poses a different risk. In the first filming of Cartelville, the first challenge when it came to safety that we faced was getting as close as we can to film the girls, and then getting our drone over them. And the thing is, when we were in the middle of the nowhere in the desert, and let's say like if you're a girl, for us to even get the drone in an area where we could even get the girl, we had to be like, I think like less or right around 1.5 miles away, right? So picture this in your head. So middle of nowhere, and if you're out there and let's say in the middle of the day, if you see like a Honda Civic, half a mile away, and you're these cartel growers, you're gonna be like, wait a minute, we're the only ones out here. There's only one reason any vehicle should be here is to come to us. We don't know that car. Oh yeah, we're after it. So in the daylight, it was pretty eerie because we would have to fly our drone, and we would basically be in spots where, like, if they just come out, oh, we're spotted. The scary situation that happened, two of them happened in broad daylight. One of them, we were on the LA County, San Bernardino County line, and we found the biggest active grow that we saw in the desert, which was, I mean, I don't know if it was an acre or two. It was massive. I mean, 100 greenhouses.
This is indoor. Okay.
Outdoor in the deserts.
But indoor meaning in hoop houses.
Yeah, in hoop houses. But out in the outdoors. So we fly our drone over it, do our whole thing. We fly back to the Honda, and as we're driving out, they spotted us, and they actually put a drone over us. So they actually
shit.
My Honda had like my license plates on it too. I was so apt, and they followed us out. And the other one that happened in daylight, it happened on the second day we were filming this active grow. The guy spots us and then goes back into grow. And then, when we got spotted, we're like, hey, man, we should get in the car. We get in the car. I had a full-on truck out there because it's like, it's rural and it's pretty rough terrain. So we're out there driving out. This guy hops in like a little Honda Civic and just like catches up to my truck and is like on us, dude, tailed us. And the only reason we got away is because out there in the desert, sometimes like a lot of companies will start, they film commercials. So we actually hopped on this road and made a left, and they were filming a commercial. So we actually, when they film a commercial in the deserts, they have to put a cop on each end of the side. So the rancher that we were with, drives up to the cop, does a nasty U-turn, and was like, hey, we're getting chased by this cartel guy. Can we just hang out here? So it posed some challenges. Northern California posed some challenges too. I felt safer in Northern California because in Northern California, you have the trees, you have a lot of elements where you could kind of be hidden yourself. But in the desert, I felt there was a lot more risk in Cartelville because it was in the middle of nowhere. We also in Cartelville, you would see, but we would go out there in the middle of night to get the drone shots for the night shots of the operations. Now my drone operator at that time, he felt more scared going out at night than in the day. I felt more scared in the day. I felt that at night it actually helped us out because I felt like we couldn't be seen. All that darkness in the deserts gave us all the advantages. So I felt better at night. He felt better than day, but it posed some challenges, but we were able to overcome them. And I'm really thankful for the ranchers and the residents because those motherfuckers have balls, man. Because after the interviews, they would be like, "Hey, man, you want to hop in the car and I'll freaking take you to them." So they were down to like take us pretty close to them. So really thankful for the residents who are down for that.
The drone shots in Narcofornia, your most recent documentary, well, the first one too, but there are some crazy ones.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot even believe they're real. I mean, it's just like it's just hundreds of fucking grows.
Yeah, like I said, in this one we had some advantages. Like I said, just the way Northern California set up with the tree, so we were able to get a lot. The difference too is in Northern California, you would find a bunch of these operations like they would be all right next to each other, almost bundled up. In the deserts, you weren't seeing that. You were seeing big ones, but they were very spread out. You weren't seeing them bundled up like they were there. There was one mountain where there was like 1,000 on just 1 mile near Doris, California. We flew the drone over. But man, it was crazy to see it, and just how wide open, and just like these ranchers being like, dude, what the hell do we do? I mean,
are you going to do another drug documentary in California? Do you know?
As of right now, I want to shift potentially something with fentanyl. I'm also want to shift a little bit more into the major crimes in a lot of these cities. I think there's one of the cities that a lot of people don't know about right now that's been really crazy with the murder rate is St. Louis. So I want to start looking at St. Louis.
Awesome.
We've been speaking. Actually, I've been speaking to a lot of Asian Americans living in San Francisco who actually voted against the DA, who've been
they got rid of their DA, right? That guy was fucking a nut.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys have been seeing the videos of like, there'll be like a 7-year-old Asian woman. She'll be like on the sidewalk, and then like 3 teens just roll up, beat the shit out of her for no reason. So we're going to be speaking to a lot of the Asian Americans, Asian activists who are really pissed off about the crime up in San Fran. We might do something with fentanyl. So we're going to be shifting the focus. But right now, as of like in real time, we're in Yuma, Arizona. So we'll be doing some border coverage tonight, working on some different stories down here, man. And kind of shifting focus on, like I said, more crime. I want to get into the fentanyl and this new rainbow fentanyl that's been kind of becoming a new phenomenon is I want to look at too.
So how does this end in Northern California? What's the next step? Does it get worse before it gets better? Like
I mean, man, I hate to be so.
What if we all quit smoking weed? I don't even smoke weed.
So gotta quit on the East Coast. The East Coast.
Yeah, the East Coast, man. All those damn in Jersey. There's puffing in Jersey, but at this point, I hate to say it, but it almost seems like it's already doomed, because what's already going to happen, and what I'm seeing happen in the deserts, is regular people can't stand it anymore, so they're moving out and putting their homes for sale. And two things are happening. Either more growers are just going to buy the homes up, and then these communities basically turn into grower communities, or another family is going to just buy the home, and then within a year or two, they're going to realize, holy crap, look at the mess I'm into. And the thing is, in the first documentary, like 9 out of the 10 residents we interviewed had already put their homes up for sale. So they're already like, oh, we're done. So we're already seeing them move up in Northern California. Most of the some of the people have already started to move, and they're already leaving now. Look, a lot of people do have pride. At the end of the day, it's like, hey, this is my home. We're gonna fight for as long as we can. But a lot of the time, man, a lot of these people too in these rural communities are retired, so they're not young bucks that could in their 30s or even in their 40s. They're already in the 60s, the 70s. They don't have the energy to deal with the water theft or to be up at night or like always have a gun on them and be alert. So we are what I'm thinking is it's just going to get worse, because these people are going to continue to move out, and we're just going to see these communities change. Also, for a lot of the ranchers and the farmers, they actually want to pass their land to their kids. The issue is give me a second, guys. The issue is that their kids, and I spoke to some of the kids, they're like, well, why would I take over my mom's or dad's land when the state of California, this is not even cartel related, the state of California is already restricting my water, and I'm going to be over penalized just for trying to keep the ranch up. So now we have to deal with the whole water issue in California, inflation, supply chain, and now cartel. It's like, dude, so a lot of the ranchers are like, dude, we want to pass this down to our kids. Our kids literally won't even take it from us. Even if we pay them to take the land, they don't want to deal with it. So now we're going to see lost generations of ranchers and farmers. So I don't know where the bright spot is. And another thing that I want to say, this is from Missouri, like, we didn't include this in documentary, but when you're in these towns, all these towns, back in the 90s or even early 2000s, were thriving little towns where, like, if you're driving out there road trips, people stop in these towns. They stop at the hotels. They stop at, the restaurants there, the truckers. Like, these were all thriving little towns. They didn't need large populations. They were all doing great. But because of California and because of how hard life is for ranchers and farmers and rural life and the taxes and just cost of living, especially the water issue. I mean, that's really the number one thing. But
I'm looking at homes in Doris, California, as you talk too.
Yeah,
fuck, it's in the middle of nowhere, dude.
Yeah. So because of all of that, guys, when you're driving in the middle of these towns, they are now literally like diving little towns, like where like you're driving by and you feel bad because there's nothing there, and there's like So the people there are like losing hope. You have all these towns that are like, dude, we've lost hope. We have no future. Like no young people want to deal with this. So there's no young people to stay there. The old boomers are gonna die off in like the next 10 years. Yeah, dude, it's pretty devastating, bro. I like that town Dorse. I mean, I'm making a joke about it, but it could not even exist in the next 20 years, man.
Here for $12 million, you can get 3,000 acres. Shit. Oh my God, this is fucking the middle of nowhere. Here's a house for 20 grand. I didn't even know that existed.
Well, the lack of resources is what's really crazy too, because if you think about it, there's no support from the state. It's actually working against them in every way. You talk about the water restriction being penalized, yet the cartels are moving tons of gallons of water out of there all the time illegally, poisoning the water that's there. I can't help but think that a lot of this has occurred from obviously lots of things, but mostly just failed policies of the leaders at a state level almost.
And that's what we're seeing in every single issue. And the thing is, when we talk about this issue now, is like, it's not even like a left or right issue. This should be a Californian issue, because all of us Californians deal with the water theft. We're all getting hit by, like, in LA County, like, you know, we're getting the letters from the county saying, hey, motherfuckers, you can only use this amount now. We're coming down. So we all get hit by it. The environmental issue, whether you're left or right, I think just as a human, you don't want to see like migrants being like forced to work on these girls. I mean, the conditions, first of all, are not
slave
great.
labor. Yeah.
It's slave labor, like in both sides, like whether you're in Northern California or in my deserts in SoCal, as you guys know, in the summer, it could get to 110 out there.
It can get crazy. Yeah.
It can get crazy. So we could all agree, like we don't even want these conditions for the people, and for the state of California, like just from a politician standpoint, like literally just like from a suit and tie, like politician standpoint, you're not making no money because you're not seeing the tax revenue. All the water is being stolen from you, so then it's becoming a state problem. I don't know where the victory is. And now, I mean, when we were doing this documentary, this wasn't the case, but now we have our governor having his sights set on the White House for 2024, and this is an issue that he's going to bury, that he's not going to talk about. I also mentioned in the documentary very briefly, but I try to say that whether it was a Democrat or a Republican running in the recall election last year here in California, this wasn't even like a top 3, top 5 issue. Like, no one brought it up. No one brought up the illegal grows, the water theft, what ranchers and farmers are going through. This is not just a Northern California issue, dude. This is in Lassen, Siskiyou, Shasta, and then coming down to San Bernardino, LA County. We got Kern County right next.
I can't imagine Shasta is going to tolerate that.
Ooh, I mean, Shasta right now is up to like 4,000, 5,000 grows. Lassen County right now is at 2,000 grows, and that might not sound a lot for how big Lassen is, but the thing is, it's going to explode because Lassen County has no manpower. I'm talking about like zilch, nothing out there. It's crazy how rural. We were out there in an area. I don't know if you want to even Google this, Matthew, really quick. I didn't even know this place existed. It was called Ravendale, with like a population of like 100 people, and there was like 50 operations already in place. Like Mexican, like it's nuts how these guys have picked out these really rural areas where they know that like law enforcement can't get to, or if they do, it'll take them. Yeah, like this is middle of nowhere right here, bro.
Yeah, unincorporated community of Lassen County.
I'm looking at the map too. There's not even a single house for sale. There's only land. It's only land.
It sounds like out of a movie like Ravendale, like some movie out of like the movie Twilight. But we were
400 acres for 200 grand.
Oh, there you go, dude.
Yeah, the basically 70 acres for 80 grand. It's $1,000 an acre here. Wow.
And what's funny is, like, you know, these guys are out there purchasing this land with, you know, some of this land. Now, majority of the time they want the land with an access to water, but like in Ravendale, there's like no access to water, but they're still out there hauling water, figuring it out how to bring the water in, buying these massive old water trucks and just hauling all that to really, middle of nowhere type of stuff, man. And it's like I said, this is kind of an underreported story. I recommend everyone, if they can, listen to the first. I'll get them on your guys' podcast for sure, but listen to the first Joe Rogan and John Norris podcast. Listen to how, because John.
I'm gonna get this guy's book. I'm gonna get this guy's book tonight when we get off. I'm driving tomorrow for 5 hours. I'll listen to it.
Yeah. Because John really talks about it from the issue of the 05, 06 and what they had to face then, and then we really handle it from what how it is exploded now. But John, like I said, look up John, guys. Look up The War on the Woods. I think you will find it fascinating. What's great about John's books is there's a bunch of photo evidence. So you're looking at all the Mexican nationals they apprehended. Another little thing, and we spoke about it multiple times on this podcast, is the Santa Muerte. So when they raid these girls, you'll see like the cartel religion. They have this like kind of religion in Mexico that they think that what they're doing is the right thing. So they have the Santa Muerte, the sacrifice. So sometimes you'll see dead animals next to these little prayers and candles. So you'll see a lot of Santa Muerte. There's these things called the forgot the term, but there's these boats that these Mexican nationals, what they'll do is they'll take them sometimes from Mexico, they'll take them from San Diego, and they'll take them all the way to Northern California, and they'll haul all the marijuana up there on the shores and
you mean along the coast? They'll
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they call them, I forgot the exact boat name, but they call that also the traps that kind of are similar to what the Vietnamese did in the Vietnam War. He has a lot of images of like the traps, the booby traps they set up for game wardens, for animals to be caught up in. So I highly recommend people to just look up at this issue because it's one of the more fascinating ones, just because being from California and, marijuana is so embedded in our culture where like marijuana is basically like alcohol, and people basically will have no idea that this black market industry is operating with this. And look, this is nothing against weed. It's not like, oh, I want weed illegal now and put those people to jail for smoking joints. No one cares about that. This is all about, water theft, human smuggling, the violence, the amount of murders, the homicides that are connected to these grows are, it's highly alarming. And the thing is, because this wasn't solved in Northern California, now Southern California has become the new safe haven for these guys. They just discovered, like, wait a minute, look at these deserts, look at these, look at all the. And then the thing is, what makes the deserts great is we have the California aqueduct runs through my hometown. It runs through the Antelope Valley. So what these guys do sometimes is they'll put some black poly pipe and just put it in that aqueduct and just pump water, dude, all day and night. And then because we have farming communities in a lot of these rural communities, you obviously have a lot of the counties, they'll put up fire hydrants for the ranchers. But what the cartels will do, the growers, is in the middle of the night, they'll tap into the fire hydrants and just pump water all day. Where I live in Antelope Valley, we have about 100 fire hydrants for the ranchers. Because of water theft is so high, they shut off about 60 of them. So we're down. I think we got like 40 left.
Crazy.
Up in Doris, California, they have about 100 of these fire hydrants, and the same thing's happening right middle of the night. They're getting hit with the water theft. The thing is, to lock those fire hydrants, the lock costs $100. But this little town is so poor, they can't afford these
fucking lock.
These 100 locks for $100 to put on these locks. So they're just like, they don't know what to do.
Holy shit.
I'm laughing because it's so absurd that this is happening in the US and just how blatant it is in 2022 as well.
Jorge, amazing 82 minutes. Thank you, brother, for coming on. Thanks for sharing your story. Can't wait to have you on again. You the man, as always.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And tell your grinder date. Sorry, he can have you back now.
All right, thanks.
Okay, bye.
Appreciate it.
Later, Jorge. Thank you.
Did he get the dude in the back? Did he get the grinder?
I think he did right at the end. He was like, wait, what? Dude, that is crazy. I watched the doc. I know you watched the doc too, but it was just you wouldn't think of it being the Wild Wild West. And all I have to do is drive about 2 hours north. Not even.
I know, it's so close to us. I know. Yep.
Yeah. And it was nuts because I was told a little bit here, but I knew a guy that lived in Mendocino County, and that's what he did. He knew some mob guys out in the East Coast, and he would ship between 10 and 20 pounds just through the local mail parcels there in the town. And they had people that worked at each one. So it'd be like, oh, go see John on Thursday between 10 and 6. You're going to hand him this package. You're going to go to UPS, and this time you're going to see so-and-so at this time. And he would actually receive money back through the mail, 60, 70 grand at a time coming through there. And they had that whole area. But you know what's interesting, the difference between him and what Jorge was explaining with the cartels is that, you know, obviously it was very illegal and it was going across state lines, but he had a family there. They were invested in the schools there. He had like a, you know, a small business in the town. So at least some of that money circulated back into the local economy by it through the black market. But it's nuts when you have the cartels coming in, taking all that water, taking all that stuff, and it's just leaving us bone dry. There's nothing being reinvested back into it.
Whoever pays the bills is in charge. And so if the cartel is paying the bills, they're in charge. That's why the Democrats want to give away so much welfare.
Well, he started the conversation with them noticing all the new registered voters, right? That's right. It started, hey, there's something weird. There's 500 new registered voters in a town of 1,000 fucking people. This seems odd. And then you saw more and more and more of that. Wow.
All right. Live call-in show tomorrow night. Is that the plan?
Yeah.
Okay. Guys, I think that show will be at 7 p.m. tomorrow. Crazy travel day tomorrow. Hiller voice idiot. Bummer, thought it started at 8 Pacific Standard Time. We could start at 8. We could start late. You need to start at 8. We started at 8 for you, Eric. Whatever you need, boy. Okay. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for checking in. Great day. If you didn't get to check out the podcast this morning with Nikki Rodriguez and Mr. Jason Khalipa, please check it out. We got Alex Stein rescheduled. We have live call-in show tomorrow evening. And then I think we have an affiliate show the following day. And then I think we have a UFC show with Nunley and Darian Weeks on Friday.
Yep.
I'm going to try for the next 9 or 10 days only to do one show a day, all of them at 7 a.m. My kids got a jiu-jitsu tournament on September 10th. And I want to make sure that I'm getting them to all their classes and all their training over the next 10 days because we've been slacking the last 2 weeks being down here at the beach every day. All right, guys. See you guys soon. Souza.